Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Excited to look ahead to the Florida game, but it's great to actually be back in my house for a while. So,
Look at that,
I'll
man.
enjoy these next 48 hours or so. But no, back doing the Nolecast, looking towards a UF game. As always, want to thank our friends at Prize Picks. I don't believe the card that they've got their numbers out quite yet as we're recording this Wednesday late morning. But they do have a fantastic promo, and it's the old, not technically a free square because, squares would never be free. But it is, what, a half yard? Yeah, you could go more or less half yard on Christian McCaffrey. So, and not only, Bud, if you were worried, that includes receiving yards too. So, half yard rushing or receiving deposit match with coupon code NOCAST. Keep an eye out for our social medias, as my friend sitting there on the left of your screen is one of the better people in the country at this, and we'll keep moving on with our good friends at Prize Picks. It's been a great year, and we thank them for their support, as always. prizepicks.com.
And tell your relatives and friends at Thanksgiving dinner, obviously.
Yeah.
Or well, maybe not at dinner, but like as you're waiting around for dinner, and they'll be like, "What are you looking at your phone?" Like, "Oh, check out my Prize Picks."
When they get into politics, you just go, I'd like to talk about, economics and performance. And I paid for half of a Thanksgiving dinner thanks to Prize Picks. So you guys can go on and talk about politics. I'm more a monetary policy type of person. So
hey, man, everything is politics, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, not so. Little game in the swamp this weekend.
Little
Sunshine Showdown. They try to put a name on this thing. Do we embrace the name, the Sunshine Showdown? Like, do we care?
Name is. I mean, probably not. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the name. Florida. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, it is. So
yeah.
It's FSU versus UF. It's two of those, uniform color combinations. So as soon as they get out on the field, it just feels like big time college football. And part of that's because I'm in my late 40s. I'm in my late 30s now, 40. And, growing up, this would normally be a game of 1 versus 4 or 2 versus 3 or something like that. So there's certainly a window of time where this game was legitimately, from 93 to 2000. If you won this game, you had better than a coin flip chance of playing in the national championship. And neither team's quite there yet, but I'd say Florida State's holding up their end of the bargain a lot more than the gentlemen in Gainesville right now. So
I would agree with that. They do lead the all-time series.
Yeah, a few historical advantages for University of Florida, certainly 1 or 2. But
yeah, what's
the past 30 years look like of the series? I'd be curious.
Interesting you ask. Okay. So what would have changed in the last 30 years? Oh, the 85 scholarship era became upon us. FSU leads then. How about since integration of the sport?
That's a good benchmark.
That one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
FSU leads, I believe, after that. So, if you like people of all races to be able to play the game, that's a decent benchmark there. It was a little bit different, before that happened. So,
you cling on to those, victories of the early 60s, though, by all means, please.
Absolutely. So, look, I think we thought this was going to be a good ball game with both quarterbacks in. Now that both quarterbacks are unfortunately out, I think this it's still the rivalry, right? It's still one of the games by which you measure yourself. And it's still a game that's got major juice to it, even though you don't have your Heisman contending quarterback and they don't have their better than expected kind of decent transfer portal kid in Graham Mertz. Quickly, by the way,
was back at practice today. That's nice.
I did, man.
On a golf cart. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. He's not practicing. But that was great is a relative term when your Heisman contending quarterback has to come back to practice on a golf cart. But it was great to see him walk out there with the quarterbacks. And it is my understanding that Jordan is choosing to delay things so that he can attend the game this week. On Saturday. So, forever with his teammates and great visual to see the whole quarterback room make their way into practice this morning.
That is awesome that he'll be there at the ball game, man. I think the teammates will get some juice out of that, honestly. Florida comes in 5-6. They are about where Vegas expected them to be. 5.5 win total for the preseason. They had some obvious issues. Quickly, by the way, to interrupt myself, I don't give a damn about these playoff rankings, right? We told you this before Jordan got hurt on this very show, the last Wednesday show. If Washington beat Oregon State at Oregon State, we should expect them to jump FSU. They beat Oregon State. We expect to jump. I actually kind of take the committee at face value that they don't factor in the Jordan injury yet. There's just no reason to. They'll get 2 data points on how Tate Rodemaker plays, right? Either he plays well or he doesn't. So, no, I'm not freaking out about that at all. Florida comes in 5-6. Their offense has been, I think, in some ways better than expected, and in some ways probably a little bit worse than expected. The run game has not been quite as good as I think some Gators fans wanted them to be. Mertz played pretty well for them, although they don't ask him to do a whole lot. It's a lot of sort of short throws. I think the receiving core has 2 dudes who are pretty damn good, or at least talented. Pearsall is an NFL guy, and Wilson, if he stays healthy, almost certainly will be. Defensively, they've had some problems, and they've had some problems for about a solid month or so, even after their bye week. Dealer's choice. Where do we want to start here?
Yeah, let's start on defense. I mean, that is where, they're a bit of a mess. I do think parts of their defense will probably overperform as to what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. But let's start there, then we can come back to the offensive side of the ball. And yes, the Pearsall name still rings familiar. The Pearsall, he of the only scholarship wide receiver of last year's game, would still put up, I don't know, way too many yards. Anyway, let's go back to that defense.
That's a hard game to forget.
Yeah.
If you're judging that defensive staff, oh man. All right. Anyway, but they've been better this year. So this is a defense that gave up 33 to a pretty terrible Kentucky team. They gave up 39 to South Carolina, 43 to Georgia. Now, granted, one of that I think was a block punt, but if Georgia wanted to score 50, they probably could have. 39 to Arkansas, albeit in overtime, but still 30 in regulation in the swamp. 35 to LSU really is there's no real shame in that, to be honest, in Baton Rouge, and 30 plus to Missouri. Basically, everybody's scoring 30 on these dudes right now, and I think they have a couple issues. Now, if you discuss some of the issues you've seen, because there is one thing I wanted to pull up here that I need to import, because I have a pretty good explanation of what they do.
Yeah. I mean, their weaknesses start at the linebacker position, in my opinion. Not great there. I also don't. I'm interested in this conversation because I think some of their weaknesses I don't know if Florida State can take advantage of. Like in the Kentucky game that you referenced, Kentucky just beat the hell out of them along the line of scrimmage, and I don't know if Florida State has the ability to do that. There are parts of that offensive line that I think are healthier than maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. But on the whole, that offensive line is still banged up and going to deal with a relatively medium-sized ceiling, let's say, just because of health. And I don't know, maybe should you make the playoffs and you get, 3.5 weeks or whatever, that some of that would improve, some of it might not. I don't know. Not a doctor, don't know the specs of all these kids' specific ailments, but it appears as though, this is a mash unit, and I don't know that you can mash them in the manner that some of the SEC teams did that we just talked about in when reviewing some of the scores there. The LSU score is respectable. What was disgusting is the amount of offense that got slapped on them in the LSU game and some of the opportunities that didn't turn into points. We'll see what happens. I mean, Tate is a talented quarterback, had, it seems to be a decent amount of variance at times, but if you get good Tate, you could score, 36 or 35, you could score somewhere in the 6 or 7 touchdown range. Not 7 touchdowns. Let's say 5 to 6 touchdowns. I think you could legitimately score on this team, have successful possessions. We'll see. The defense is lacking. It's weak in the middle. I do expect their defensive line to probably play a little bit better than that of what we've seen over the past month or so from them.
I think that's completely fair. Okay, I found it just because I wanted to have a good schematic explanation of what Florida does here, and let's hear it actually from their defensive coordinator himself.
Is this
It is, yeah.
Is this tool shed, not toolbox?
That is correct.
Love it. I can never hear this enough.
Let me see here. Full screen this. All right.
Throwing around right, which is
Can you hear this, by the way?
No, I can hear it. Absolutely.
All right, here I'm gonna start it now.
Modern football is. We don't have a toolbox. We like to say we have a tool shed of scheme.
Oh yeah.
I mean, our deal is we're going to be multiple 4-down front team that play split safety, man match, and middle field close coverage. We're going to pressure, the word creeper gets thrown around, right, which is a 4-man pressure versus the pass and a 5-man pressure against the run. So it's a mixture of a fire zone and a cover 3 cover concepts. We do some other stuff on a 5-man process that's different at a 4-down front and 3-down front. At the end of the day, not many people are like us that are multiple in the back end and multiple in the front end. They're kind of one or the other, right?
Vanderbilt's different than Georgia.
Whatever tools we need every week to play in this league, because each team's different. Vanderbilt's different than Georgia. Georgia is different than Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? And you got to have a scheme that is flexible to what you're seeing all the time, but also what your players can do. That's what modern football is.
All right. So you got that there. Look,
the word creeper gets thrown around some. I love that. There's a lot of phrases in that are just absolute gold.
Yeah. Look, it's basically word salad that he's like trying to impress people, as far as like his knowledge of defense. I look, everything he's saying is extremely yes, a lot of good defenses do what Florida is attempting to run. What Florida does not do very well is some of the fundamentals, right? They don't really take on blocks super well, especially at the second and third levels. Kentucky handled Florida is really, really big up front. They're not super twitchy, but they are pretty large up front. I mean, Cam Jackson, the kid they got from Memphis, is like 6'6", 360. I mean, they run Desmond Watson out there, who's 6'5", 435.
Mm-hmm.
Not a misprint, not a typo. 435. And it basically has been over 400 since high school. Which, is an obvious red flag. For every Mount Cody that Alabama had, there's a guy like Watson who, just can't get the weight in check. Caleb Banks, 6'5", 320. Tyree Sapp is 6'2.5", 275. That's probably who Jeremiah Byers is going to get at right tackle. And then Princely is probably their best pass rusher overall, 6'4.5", 255. They are big. They do not take on blocks very well from the safety and linebacker position. They just, the fundamentals of this defense so far are largely lacking, and it leads to explosive plays at times by opponents. Their coverage guys some of them are okay. Like Jason Marshall is a guy who I think will probably have a chance to go pro early after the season. But I don't think that Mitchell and Castell are amazing, to be honest. That this is a defense that is gettable. Mike Norvell's a very good offensive coach. Tate's going to have to play well, or at least decently well, going in there. But I do think you will have opportunities to hit explosive plays. Because they're not twitchy up front, or maybe he would just do this anyway, because this is what Armstrong likes to do. And in this way, a lot of Florida fans would call him Baby Kirby, but I think he actually resembles more of like Baby Grantham, both in face and in style. They have to blitz a lot, and that does lead to busts. I don't think some of their blitz coverage is all that good. As long as Tate plays okay, I expect FSU to score points here. You have an explosive weapon in Benson. mean, you have some really explosive receivers in Keon and Johnny. You know, Bell got a lot of run against North Alabama. Obviously, Kentron has been coming back and just finally getting healthier, which is
really
nice.
nice practice yesterday too from 88.
I mean, Tate
coming online definitely,
and Tate likes him. You know,
and Tate has, I mean, there's a lot of practice history there. Absolutely,
exactly. So, look, it's interesting because some of the teams that have really done well against Florida have run a lot of gap stuff. Like Kentucky gapped them pretty good, which is something that you do with some of your counter stuff. But some teams have also run zone pretty effectively against them, right? I thought LSU ran the ball decently with some of their zone stuff. Obviously, you know, Daniels is just a freak this year. I mean, he has more yards than Blake Corum, by the way, the Michigan kid. Like, think about that. That's nuts. Missouri's kind of a mix. So I think that one of the lingering questions after last game, and this is not like insider info, everybody saw him leave the game. And if you are at any of these games, you see him like on the sideline battling all the time, is Mo Smith, right? Now, luckily, Darius Washington, I think, is a capable replacement if Smith can't go and offers a little more bulk than Mo Smith does, which is not necessarily the worst thing in this game, I think, because of how big UF is, right? You know, I would have some concerns about Mo against guys who are 435 and 360. The 360 kid can actually, like, he is a good player and will probably play in the NFL. 435 guy, I'm not really sure about that. But again, I mean, you know, whatever. So if you're Mike, like, how many shot plays can you scheme up? You know they're probably going to blitz you a lot. I don't think they're going to back off the blitz stuff against a not a freshman quarterback in Tate, but you know, a first-time like starter in Tate, right? How is that going to play in the swamp? How does Tate handle some of the blitz checks? This is where I get a little nervous. It's not really Tate throwing the ball. It's more, how does Rodemaker handle like some of the adjustments to the pressures? Is he on the same page with the receivers? Because that's where the turnovers come, right? You know, strip sacks, miscommunications against blitz because he doesn't have as much experience with the first team offense. But I mean, I think this is a game you try to feed your studs, right? Johnny, Keon, especially Keon. If they go Keon solo on Marshall, I think that's a matchup that Keon can win. And I think you get your screen game working. I'm not saying you don't try to run the ball. Obviously, I think you do, but you know, passes on first down are advantageous against this defense, especially with how aggressive they are. And I think it's something that you can do. They also they're 130th in explosive rush rate allowed. They are 133rd in explosive pass rate allowed. We talked about against Miami how it's okay to have strikeouts, but not double plays. The exact same logic here applies, except like times 10, right? Because you are getting another backup quarterback. You're getting another extremely big, super aggressive defense. Now, Miami's defense is 100% better than UF's is, but in style, like, they both bring a whole lot of guys all the time. They're going to give up explosive plays. You are an offense that hits explosive plays. Even though I don't think Tate is amazing, right? And like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is not a major drop-off from Jordan, because I think that's disingenuous. I also am not going to pretend that Norvell is not an excellent play caller, right? And has had success with much worse quarterbacks, I think, than Tate Rodemaker. You know, and also, like, if Tate's not your starter next year, he's still, like, he doesn't suck. He's a guy that, like, G5 schools or like low P5 would have a lot of interest in. So I don't think it's like, hey, you're playing a quarterback in the swamp who just can't play. I think Mike will work with him throughout the week to figure out stuff that he likes, that he feels good about, that have explosive play potential. And let's be real here. I mean, let's play paper, rock, scissors, okay? Paper, rock, scissors. All right, what'd you go with? Okay, you know what? I threw scissors, you threw rock.
Sometimes it does come down to that. It really does. I know people don't want to admit that, but sometimes you throw scissors and other guy got the paper and you look like a genius. And sometimes you accidentally, blitz right into a screen, and that sucks. But yeah,
Exactly. One thing that always looks like a smart move is calling our buddies at the Legendary team, Legendary Home Loans. Chad and Shannon do a tremendous job. 844 FSU Loan is the number to call. 844 FSU Loan. I've called that number. Well, I've actually called that number a lot of times. I talk to our guys, but our Nolecast listeners have called that number over 500 times to get loans, and I just think the satisfaction is overwhelming with them. You can look at the Google reviews, and in this market, I mean, interest rates aren't super low. If you guys haven't noticed, but that doesn't mean that people aren't buying homes. People have to move. People's families grow. Needs change. You do want somebody who's got a lot of experience in the industry who can help structure your loan in the right way that fits you. I'm confident Chad and Shannon can do that for y'all, and I recommend them wholeheartedly. So they've been a proud supporter of the Nolecast, and man, they're living and dying with every snap for sure. That was, yeah, big time Nole fans, and they love to work with other Noles. All right, so Keon Johnny, Bell, Portier, Benson. I don't think Florida's back seven is amazing. If you can hold up front, I think you can pop some explosive runs, and I think you can hit some explosive plays, especially off play action. As we just played paper, rock, scissors, a lot of this stuff just comes down to, are you catching them in the blitz at the right time with some of your screen game stuff? With the frequency with which they blitz, I think the answer is probably yes. You'll catch a couple. Just do you catch them at the right times, and can you avoid the turnovers? Because I don't think Florida's defense or offense is bad, but it's probably not at top speed, I would say right now. You got anything else to add on the UF defense?
No, I mean, that's it for the most part. I think you'll do well. I think Tate, it's going to, some of the stuff he does, some of the RPO, the way he works the middle of the field, I think pairs with the weaknesses of this defense. As long as, look, it's going to be a nerve-wracking environment. Florida's, having a tough year. Nonetheless, the swamp is the swamp, and night games at the swamp are exactly that. I think if you get started off positively on offense, you've got a chance to beat this team by 14 plus, maybe more. It's a lot of this will depend, in my opinion, as to how does Tate deal with mistakes? How does Tate deal with some of these pressure schemes that they come up with, and is it on to the next play and not stuff that sticks with him? So,
totally agree. I will also say Florida is not quite as bad as some of their numbers suggest, for a couple of reasons. One, or at least on a down-to-down basis. Like if you just turn on the film, or if you have access to coaches' film, right, and you just watch all their offensive snaps, you watch all their defensive snaps. I had a buddy who coaches, and he texted me. He's like, "How the hell did Florida lose to Arkansas?" I was like, "Oh, let me guess. You just watch their offense and you watch their defense." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "All right. You can't really do that with them. You have to watch it within the context of game flow and sequence, because Florida has played the number one strength of schedule in the country by a lot of measures.
And so, they're going to do that next year too, for what it's worth.
That is noted. Yeah, I did notice that. No Vanderbilt, and yes to Miami, UCF, and FSU.
Yeah. And they get don't they get Texas and Oklahoma, I believe, next year? I know they get Texas.
Yeah.
I may be wrong on Oklahoma, whatever.
I think they dodged Bama, which is nice to dodge, but they play Georgia as well. The other reason why it's hard to evaluate this team, if you watch them on a down-to-down basis, they shoot themselves in the foot like crazy. I mean, we talked about the lack of fundamentals on defense and maybe trying to do too much on defense that they really can't do. But also, guys, they, for a long period of time this year, were dead last in the country in EPA lost to special teams penalties, and dead last in the country to EPA lost in short yardage situations via penalties. I don't know that's entirely sticky and is that something you can count on them having a 12-man penalty every game? So far, it kind of has been, but there's no real reason to think that they have to do that every game. right? And so they may not just give it to you the entire time. Maybe they will. It is possible that they continue to play that way, and that last week's loss was just soul crushing. But I don't know that it's guaranteed to be like that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Gators offense. It has been an interesting offense this year, a little bit better than I thought it was going to be, honestly. I was skeptical of some of their offensive line transfers they took, and I think I was correct in that. But Mertz was definitely better than I thought he was going to be, and that's a credit to him, obviously, but he's out. And now they have a freshman quarterback in Max Brown, who a friend of mine told me that, well, he throws the ball like a second baseman. And I said, yeah, but he runs like one too. He's like, there is that. So a little more mobile than Graham Mertz, I believe, but not a guy who has much experience at all.
What does that mean exactly, throws the ball like a second baseman? Just curious. Is that from like arm angle, or what's the reference there?
I think like arm angle and not a guy that has a cannon.
Okay. Gotcha.
But hey, in college football, you can get away with that, right? You can work a lot of stuff to the boundary. You can do,
no, Mertz was way better than I thought he was going to be. Absolutely. Yeah. Credit to the kid. Played hard, better player than I thought he was going to be.
That was a good eval. All right. So Florida's official depth chart comes out Wednesday nights. They put their little injury designations on there. So that's not out yet. There are a couple of really important things to know here. First of all, their two receivers, I think, are really nice players, Pearsall and Wilson. Wilson's a true freshman, but he's a stud, and Pearsall is really good. FSU is definitely better this year with their nickel stuff than they were last year, right? Greedy and Jarian did a pretty good job on Restrepo. Like, I know they missed him once or twice, but it's not like Restrepo went off, and Restrepo is a pretty nice slot guy for Miami. Florida likes to put Pearsall in the slot and work the ball to him a lot, and I would expect them to continue that. Now, here's a key. Austin Barber, their left tackle, did not play against Missouri with an injury. I don't know if he's going to play. Damian George, their right tackle, who they took from Alabama, a guy who hasn't played all that well, but I think the fact that he's played as much as he has is probably telling about what they have behind him. He went down against Missouri with like a lower leg injury, and it did not look good. So I don't know if he's going to play against you. If Florida's rolling into this game with two backup tackles and a freshman quarterback, FSU's defense needs to eat them up front and cause massive problems. You're going to get a lot of zone run game for them. I think that's something that FSU probably can handle. Gators' offensive line is very beefy. They will try to be physical. I do expect them to make mistakes, though, honestly. And I think your defensive line has the advantage over UF's offensive line, especially if you have both starting tackles out. We know from the preseason notes, Florida does not like their offensive tackle depth. They had injuries there that seem to be important. Now, they got Cam Waits back, who had an Achilles, I think, in spring or fall camp. And they got Micah Mazuka back, who had a shoulder thing in the spring. So that's been helpful for them, right? And those guys aren't terrible. But like Jared Verse is an NFL guy, and Peyton's an NFL guy eventually. And you got Fisk, you got Lovett, Farmer, like those dudes, I think have a chance to make a real impact on this ball game. I know FSU's hoping to get Deloach back this week. And Florida's not a team that spreads you out a whole lot, right? So everybody saw Renardo in the sling at the game against North Alabama. I don't know if he's going to play or not. That would worry me more if you're playing like a big-time spread team. But UF does not run a whole lot of 3 and 4 wide. Like they run some 3 wide, obviously, because they put Pearsall in the slot. But they don't run a lot like 4 wide and chuck it all over the place. And I don't really think that this is the week they're going to start doing that. So if you had to roll with AZ and with
Greedy, AZ,
right.
Jarian. I mean, you got good players. You got bodies. Jarian's turned into a better player than I ever would have imagined. Fintrell, very solid.
There's a lot of teams that would. There's a lot of teams that would take FSU secondary out there. A lot, including the one you're playing. I'm pretty certain of that. You'll probably get a whole lot of bootleg action in this. Florida does that already quite a bit. That would seem to fit with this kid's skill set. It's one of their base plays, which means it's a play that he would have repped in practice quite a bit. With how quick he is, like you're going to have to be somewhat disciplined on the backside. You can't just go for a kill shot every play. Florida is interesting because they do occasionally hit explosive plays. They're almost always on early downs with play action type stuff, right? They want to take advantage of some of your man coverage with some of their crossers. If you're more of a zone team, they want to try to hit you with some of that play action stuff, getting you creeping up against the run. They throw the second most passes behind the line of scrimmage in the nation. You will have to tackle well. Now, I don't think that's necessarily something that has been a strength for the Noles, but I don't think it's impossible that they have a good tackling game here. They rarely throw the ball down the field, and they operate slowly. So this is definitely contrast in styles, because if I'm Norvell, I want to go a little faster to try to take the crowd out of it some, to try to take some of these blitz calls away from Florida so they can't dial up quite as complex shit. Sorry for cussing again. I'm kind of amped up today. I'm excited for these games that have real juice. You're going to have to be disciplined on defense, understand it's a 60-minute fight, and that Florida is definitely liable to make mistakes and turn the ball over, and have problems. They are legitimately a bad team in obvious passing downs. Like, that is a weakness of the offense with or without Mertz. I think with Mertz, clearly. How much do they try it is an interesting question we need to ask here. Do you think we see a lot of quarterback draw, a lot of screens, that type of stuff in third and obvious? Probably depends on game state, right? If you're down, then they're going to have to try to chuck it around. If they're sort of hanging around, you probably get a lot of quarterback draw type stuff to keep it around. But they will definitely they'll knock themselves off schedule. They do allow a decent bit of havoc. They are bottom 10 in the country in offensive line penalties. So not a real disciplined football team in Gainesville. 111th in sack rate allowed. So there are opportunities here. They do have playmakers, both the backs, by the way. I can't believe we wouldn't mention the backs. Etienne and Johnson are really good. You know what else is really good, man? Congruity.
Matt Lewis, fantastic. I've spoken with Matt a couple times this week. Great partner in the Nolecast. Nothing but exceptionally positive feedback that I, from a personal perspective, can offer, and all that we've received from those who have partnered with him. I believe Matt has most of, if not all of, the For the Table empire at this point under his umbrella, partnering with the people at Legendary as well. So, not only is it our listeners, it's a big circular family of Nolecast sponsors and supporters, and those people who choose to work with Matt have been nothing but impressed and received nothing but positive things. I think that this partnership has been so successful that there's actually other people in the podcast space, Bud, that are potentially looking to partner with Congruity. So we thank our listeners. Matt's been great. Sponsorships mean nothing if the people that reach out to your sponsors don't have a great experience. And we are hesitant to partner with people in general, but particularly that of what is the most important to you: home loans, the way your business operates, etc. We have no hesitation at all with Congruity, and would encourage you to reach out to them if you have a desire to learn more about the services that they offer.
Yeah, I think in general we are pretty picky about the sponsors we take, because it has to make sense for our listeners and supporters, and it has to make sense for the sponsor too. Like, we've had ones we turned down, like it would have been a nice chunk. Like, I don't think we can deliver for you here. Like, our audience doesn't match your needs, or in some cases, like just or the reverse, right? It's just maybe like you're too localized, right? Statewide business, regional businesses work really well for a show that has tremendous listenership, in Florida, and then, supportive listenership, Georgia, Alabama, through the Carolinas, in little pockets elsewhere. So yeah, Matt Lewis and those guys do an awesome job. And we hope all of our sponsors have an amazing Thanksgiving.
Do you have any particular Thanksgiving fallbacks? I mean, there aren't really Thanksgiving movies per se. I guess Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, if that's that may be Thanksgiving. I don't know. That's I'm enjoying. I'll enjoy the next 2 days. It'll be nice.
I'm turn the phone off, and it'll be a good time, man. No, I'm certainly excited to see what goes down. And I'm not a big turkey guy. Like, I'm not anti-turkey. It's just
You still do a brisket?
I'm not doing a brisket this year. We've done that in years past. I will say that brisket that I was wet aging, I forgot to cook it, so it's been wet aging for like
it's gotten wet aged.
It's in the garage fridge. I probably need to throw it out. It's about a 10-monther, and I'm like, there's no, I don't think I can. That's a health code thing. I would think I'm not gonna Chris Gentry would get after me for sure if I did that. It's probably prediction time here. Look, Florida's not as bad as their record, but you're still a better team than the Gators are, I think.
Yep. No, I mean, we'll all be wearing our home field jackets as we go to Madison Social on Saturday night to celebrate, in my opinion. Homefieldapparel.com. You can go Nolecast23. Get you a wonderful coupon. Keep those people in mind as you do some of your holiday shopping here in the next couple of days. They've been long-time, multiple-year supporters of the Nolecast, and we thank them as always. And Matt and his team just have it cooking, whether it's Charlie Park last weekend or Madison Social at any time. The young kids have pretty much turned Township into just, I don't know what it is. Just every time I walk by, there's a 90-person line to get inside. So Township's doing okay. I can assure you that much. But no, great people.
Graduation reservations coming up, man.
Matt Thompson's looking to try to do a couple different things in support of Jordan Travis as well. Matt's just as I say, the ultimate reflection of Seminole fandom and love for the university and the program and everything else. So I love partnering and supporting Matt in any opportunity we get.
He's
all right, bud.
Man.
Prediction. I felt I had it last night, and I'm kind of reevaluating myself at this point. But I'm going to go 35-24 Florida State.
Nice. I'm going to go a little bit lower, and I'm going to go 31-20. Mike's entire track record says that he scores points. You got elite weapons. I think he can dial up enough stuff that Tate is comfortable with. I mean, look, Barber didn't play against Missouri. How good can he? Maybe it was just a 1 week thing where he couldn't get ready. The George thing looked bad to me. So maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. I'm going to assume with my prediction that they don't. If you're someone who's betting this, I would probably wait to see if those guys warm up, because that's sort of an undersold thing that I don't think people appreciate in the betting line so much. Like last week, Tennessee didn't have either of their starting tackles warming up against Georgia. I'm like, that's going to go poorly, in my opinion, because we already saw that we saw Florida whip those guys when they didn't have their two starters in Gainesville, because the one guy got hurt and the other guy got popped for weed the night before the game.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Went well for Tennessee for one play. Looked great. And then
in Florida, but the same guys were out against Georgia. Like I was saying, we'd already seen how Tennessee looked without their starters.
Yeah.
In the
I'm saying, I was just joking about Tennessee taking the first play to the house, and then it didn't work out real well.
Yeah, that was. Did you see the funny video where
I did? I sent it to a lot of Georgia fans. Absolutely,
it was amazing. So look, Florida has weapons. There are some things they do offensively that I think are trouble for you. Some of the crossers and stuff, like you'll have to chase those. Pearsall's a legit NFL guy. Both backs will probably play in the league. And they're not as bad as you think. But I think you got a lot of veteran football players. I don't think you have to lean on Tate. I think Mike can get enough confidence in Tate to hit some explosive plays and for the defense to play well enough to get out of Gainesville. I'll go Noles 31-20.
31-20. 4 touchdowns and 1 non-traditional touchdown in my
like
mental idea as to how you get to 35 there. So let's see it. Always a tough place. I'll forever be scarred by the 97 game when I went when I was 13 years old, and that's a toughie, but look forward to getting back to Gainesville. This team's banged up, but it's one of the best teams that I've ever been around as far as just I'd love for it for these guys to be able to see this through, and I think they do on Saturday. So,
final note: we didn't touch special teams. Their special teams are pretty decent. Their kick returners are really good. Kicking the ball through the end zone this week and just not taking chances with those guys, in my opinion, if you can do it, is advisable. Because then you make a freshman go out there and operate, every time from his 25. So,
Cool.
All right, don't screw around with that. Awesome, man. I'll see you on Saturday.
All right, brother. Look forward to it.
All right,
absolutely.
Man.